Hey, what's going on? This is Louis Angel right here with AE Mind. And check this out. I have a very special treat for you guys here today. I'm going to be interviewing the co-star of the show, Supernatural. He plays an angel named Castiel on that show. Not only that, but he's been on several other TV shows. And he's a co-founder of this company called Random Acts. It's a nonprofit organization which does a lot of good things for the world. So we'll talk more about that. We'll also talk about this huge scavenger hunt that I actually participated in last year with my friends called GISHWHES. So a lot of fun things. We'll talk about acting, business, giving back, so many great things here on today's interview. Please help me welcome to the A Mind interviews, Mr. Misha Collins. What's up, Misha? Thanks so much for getting on the call with us.
Hi, Luis. How are you?
Doing good, man.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. I like your Galaxy shirt.
Like it, pretty cool.
Yep.
From the Imaginary Foundation, um, this guy Jason Silva, he puts out these like cool, like mind tripping videos on his YouTube channel, Shots of Awe. And yeah, he's like, hey, I'm always wearing these shirts. They're from Imaginary Foundation. I checked out all those shirts. I have a few of them, so I really like it, man.
Nice. So he plugged the shirts, and now you plug the shirts, and then I'll probably end up plugging the shirts. So
Right.
it's good. It's a good viral marketing scheme they've
Yeah,
got going there.
for real. During our second part of our interview, the to be continued version, you're gonna have to be wearing one of these shirts.
Yeah, yeah. I'll have one next time.
Cool, man. So you're in Washington right now, right?
Yep.
Cool.
Yep. The sun is just setting right now. It's pretty. We're northern latitude here, so it gets dark in early January, very early. It's a little bit trying, and it's also dark when you wake up at like 7:30. The sun still hasn't risen, and you're like, "What is happening?"
That's kind of like
Oh,
England in a way. Like it
yeah,
sets really early and like doesn't rise till
yeah,
late. So
yeah. The
yeah.
on the flip side, in the summer, it's like 10:30 and still sunny, which is awesome. But now it's a little dreary.
So is that your home base? Is that where you reside out of in Washington?
I split my time between Northwest Washington and Los Angeles. So while I'm shooting on Supernatural, I live in Washington, and my kids are in school here in Washington now. So we're trying to make this more of our base, but we still spend about 3 months out of the year in LA,
Right.
which is still great.
Yeah. Which one do you
But
prefer?
nice. It's nice. I like this setup that we have right now.
Yeah.
I'm not going to pick favorites because it's not nice, but I like Washington better.
So you just
No,
picked the favorite.
but I like this balance of having somewhere that's not in the big city
Yeah.
be the home base, but being able to spend still a reasonably significant amount of time in the big city and culture factory that Los Angeles is. I really like this town of, we're in a place called Bellingham, which has got a population of 82,000. Um, and it's really accessible and beautiful. It's right on the water. I'm looking out the window right now at islands and a cargo ship going by. It's just really, I can show it to you.
Sure, yeah.
It's-
Let's see.
that's the view uh,
Holy moly.
out there. It's pretty awesome. So, um, so that's great. But it's nice to be able to go back into LA and be with some, real heavy hitters that are um, making the culture that the rest of the world consumes. So I like to have my toes in both
A
ponds.
mixture of both. That's awesome, man. I think I might, move out there in a few years.
You're
Man,
you're in SoCal.
yeah, yeah. I'm near. I'm about half an hour from, depending on traffic. Sometimes it take me up to 2 hours to get to LA. Sometimes on a Sunday day, Sunday afternoon, 30 minutes. I'm in LA. So yeah, I'm pretty much. I grew up here. I'm in a city called La Puente,
Mhm.
about 30 minutes from LA.
Nice.
But yeah, this has been my home base for many, many years.
Yeah.
So let's get right into it. I participated in the thing that you ran last year, and you run every single year, GISHWHES. So let's talk a little bit about that before we get into a little bit about the show and acting and other things. I really love this concept of GISHWHES. Let me see if I memorize it correctly. It's the greatest international scavenger hunt the world has ever seen.
Yeah, well
Is
done,
that
well done. Yeah,
it?
as a memory master, you have an advantage on that. Most people Can't remember how to say it. Can't remember how it's spelled, and definitely don't remember what it stands for. So good on you. Yeah.
Thanks, man. So it took many years to get me to that point right there. Many years. So what is this? I mean, I participated. It was awesome to go out and do these like fun, random things. And a lot of them were for like just good causes, helping out others, right? And at the end of it, you guys pick like a team that gets the most points, and they go on a trip to, was it Iceland this year? I think it
Yep.
is.
Yep. Yep.
So can you give me a little bit, of background, how you came up with this idea, and what is it exactly for those that don't know what it is?
Well, I went to the University of Chicago, which at the time that I went there was a very, very austere, very serious, very academic university. It's still very academic, but it's a little bit more well-rounded, my understanding is now. When I started there, they didn't even have a student center. There was the only social life occurred in the basement of the Regenstein Library in the library cafe. It was very focused. But they had this one bright spot in the academic calendar, which was the annual SCAV, which stands for Scavenger Hunt, which was a 3-day, was a long weekend, and we all participated in this totally insane, all-consuming scavenger hunt, where everyone for 3 days neglected their classes and their homework and just went balls to the wall to try to get this thing done. And I had a tremendous amount of fun doing that. There are items on the scavenger hunt. For that scavenger hunt, it was all more just like in the Chicago area. Although, yeah, it was mostly like in the Chicago area, and everything that was on the list you had to somehow physically bring to a judging contest, to a judging session at the end. So, for example, one year, one of the items was a Hooters waitress. So you had to somehow get a Hooters waitress to come wearing her, attire to a specific location at a specific time to be judged as an item in the hunt. My girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, sorry, there's a train going by if you hear that noise. My girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, nobody could get a Hooters waitress on any of the teams. So she went to Hooters and got hired. She got a job at Hooters
What?
so that she could show up for her team. Anyway, so it was just, we had a great time with that.
Yeah.
So when I got on Supernatural and started to get a following online, I had sort of a long and complicated story, but I'll shorten it to just say that I started sort of playing with my fans online, and I had been carrying with me this list of art projects that I wanted to get done for a long time, and the list kept getting longer, but I kept on not doing the things on the list. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to have my fans do these things for me and see how they come out. And so a lot of those things wound up on a little list for a mini scavenger hunt that I conducted 7 years ago. And I did it really just to have fun. I had an episode off, and I was like, oh, this could be fun. And it really blew me away. The stuff that people sent back was amazing, and the way that people got engaged was also amazing. They clearly had a tremendous amount of fun and tried really, really hard. And on that year, I think that the prize, like if your team won, I would give you, and you ever happened to come across me, if you presented your winning team ticket, I would buy you a cup of tea. Like that was it. It was not
What a prize.
It was not a good prize. But people didn't, it wasn't about the prize. People just tried super hard and won. And so when one team won, I'm still every once in a while, 7 years later, somebody will come up to me and be like, here's my thing. Can I redeem this for some tea? And I have to stop and have tea with somebody. But I was like, wow, that blew me away. That was really fun for me. I have to keep doing it. And a lot of the submissions some of the stuff that I had people do was absurd, and it just made me laugh. So I was like, I have to keep doing this. So the next year I made it I got a friend who's been sort of a business partner for some time to help me put it together. And the next year we ran it as a more organized thing, and that's when we named it GISHWHES. And in order to, which stands for, as you said, greatest international scavenger hunt the world has ever seen, and in order to actually codify it as that legitimately. I was like, we have to win a Guinness World Record as the largest scavenger hunt ever. And we did that year. It was 6,000 something participants. Now we have many tens of thousands of participants. It's grown every year. And people participate from over 100 countries. And they've done truly extraordinary things, ranging from getting artwork that was crafted by 7-year-olds, which was in this year's hunt, up in space, which is amazing.
Did anybody do that one? Did they actually
Yeah,
accomplish
they
it?
did. Yep,
Wow.
bunch of teams got that one. One, yeah. We've had the likes of William Shatner participate in the hunt, and NASA has been involved, and it's been truly extraordinary. So I still continue to have a lot of fun with it. This year we did an amazing. So we also try to integrate in a scavenger hunt. We try to raise a good chunk of the proceeds from GISHWHES go directly to charity afterwards. So that's one thing we like to do with it. But another thing is we like to actually focus the participants' efforts toward, as you mentioned, charitable acts. So there's a little bit of an element of charitable or magnanimous acts that are woven into the hunt. It's not what it's about, but it's an element of it. And part of the reason for that is, one, I feel like I've got an army of people who will do whatever I say, and I want to put them to good use. But another reason that I do that is that I want to help convey the message that doing good things for other people can be really fun. There's no reason that it has to be this boring drag that your parents are making you do. It can be something that you have a really great time doing. And so that's a message that in my life, generally speaking, I like to try to convey to people. And it seems to work. People love doing the kindness related items in the hunt. This year we had an item in the hunt which was to get other people. So we weren't extorting people who were participating in the hunt by saying, we want you to donate money, you participants. But the challenge was to get other people who were not participating in the hunt to donate money to help this family that we had just heard this amazingly heart-wrenching story about. They were Syrian refugees living in Lebanon. The mom had been shot by a sniper. She was paralyzed, hadn't been out of her tent in 2 years. The kids were just struggling to make ends meet. I mean, the story is even more heartbreaking than what I just conveyed, but we added midway through the week-long scavenger hunt this year, we added in an item that said, get other people to donate money to help this family. And we were thinking, like, if we can get $30,000, we'll be able to get the mother medical attention. We'll be able to get the family out of that tent and into an apartment. We'll be able to pay for the kids' schooling. And that will last in Lebanon right now, that'll last for 3 years. If we get $30,000, like, we can take care of all of those needs for that amount of time. And we posted it in the evening, and the next morning we had $70,000. And I was like, shit, that's enough for a whole nother family. We got to find another family. Yeah. And so we found another family, and then we raised more money by the end of that day, and we found another family and another family. And by the end, we'd raised $220,000 in 3 days, and we have now 4 families that we're taking care of, hopefully for the next 5 years, which is just incredibly gratifying to be able to do, to be able to take a game that ostensibly is whimsical and in some respects possibly pointless, and focusing the energy of the participants in that game in order to materially change the lives of these families that otherwise were in literally the most dire straits you can imagine. So that's been one really gratifying aspect of GISHWHES, and I can go on and on about it because I really love it. I mean, another thing is that I feel like the hunt gives people an excuse to engage in activities that they would never do. Gets people out of their comfort zone, gets them doing things that are maybe embarrassing or artistic that they wouldn't normally do. And so I've gotten a lot of letters from people saying, like, after I participated in GISHWHES, I decided to quit my job and go back to art school. or after I participated in GISHWHES, my team has become my closest friends, and or marriages that have been transpired because of it, or whatever. So it's made a pretty big impact on a lot of people's lives, outside of the realm of the charitable stuff that we do try to do with it. Just because it's like this super intense experience for a week, that gets people doing stuff that they would never normally do. So I love it.
That's incredible, man. Yeah.
Can't tell.
No, man, your face is definitely showing that
Yeah.
you are thinking the opposite. No, but I love this the scavenger hunt. I couldn't participate like the entire week because I had other things going on that week. So this year actually, I want to like fully dedicate that
Yeah.
whole week to doing all these challenges. But my team, I was surprised. They actually they got really into this.
Yeah.
They were going out like some of the charitable things or doing good for the community. A group of them, they went out and they were like giving bottles of water to individuals on the street with positive messages on them. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And just doing a bunch of these kind of awesome things for the community. For me, like the creative side, like you were saying right now, was I was fighting with a drone.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
I don't know if you saw that, but I picked up like my
Yes,
superhuman trophy, and I was like trying to be a
I
robot.
saw that video. That's hilarious. Yep.
Yeah, so I did a few of those. So it's true. It helps you be more creative, and then also helps you to go out and just help out the community any way that you can. So I love it. Hope that you can continue to do it and continue to do it for many more years.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
So Random Acts. This is a company that not nonprofit organization that you co-founded, correct?
Hmm.
Can you tell me a little bit about what that company does and what do you what do you do to actually give back with that company?
Well, the idea with Random Acts, the seed for Random Acts was the notion that a small act of kindness can make a profound impact on somebody's life, and it can have ripple effects. So your small action of your small action of kindness to me, will be carried with me forward in my life, and it will compel me to do that with the other people that I meet. And so acts of kindness, I believe, are kind of exponential. They can have much greater reach than you think. And I also believe that I think a lot of people are, they're inhibited by the notion that doing good for others is a big job and that they have to do something monumental. And while making big sacrifices for others is awesome, and people should always do that when they can, I think a lot of times people get hung up on it and then end up doing nothing. And so one of the things that we try to convey with Random Acts is that small gestures are also important, and encourage people to do things along a spectrum, whatever it is that they feel they have the capacity to do at the moment. So we try to facilitate those acts. So if a person has an idea of something that they want to do but needs support doing it, we provide that support, whether it's funding or infrastructure or whatever. And we also try to encourage people to do specific acts, by sending out ideas to people and creating a movement around that. And we also do things along a very wide spectrum. So it ranges from something like handing out water bottles with kind messages written on them to homeless, to building schools or orphanages or things like that. So we run kind of the gamut, in terms of the scope of the projects that we do. Random Acts is helping to facilitate all of the care that's going to those 4 refugee families that I mentioned, for instance. That's it in a nutshell. We're just finishing. We just finished the first phase of building a high school complex in Nicaragua, and now we're starting the next. We're adding in a couple of additional buildings, and that's pretty much fully funded by Random Acts.
That's amazing. That's an amazing story as to what you guys do out there. Now, what happened? Not necessarily what happened to you, but like what planted the seed in you at a young age to say want to do something was there like a certain event that happened in your life? Like for me, I don't know, like ever since I was a very young individual, I've always like loved helping out other people. I was very empathetic for other people's situations, mainly because I grew up half an hour away from LA in this place where it was very gang. It's like a very dense gang environment around where I grew up. I was never a part of it, but I saw a lot of that. Food stamps, government subsidized housing, all that kind of thing. And as I got older and I started making my own money, I was like, I want to help individuals that might be going through that. For one of the Thanksgivings a few years ago, my friend Dion and I, we got together, got some people to, donate some money, and we fed over 100 families for Thanksgiving, gave away
That's
turkeys and baskets. Yeah, thank you.
yeah.
But for that, it was just like my mentor, one of my mentors, Tony Robbins, he says, a secret to living is giving, right? So I look back at my life and like, okay, that's what helped me out when we were struggling is other people were giving to us and helping out our family. So I want to kind of pay that forward, do these random acts to other individuals. So what was it for you, like growing up? Was there something that happened or a few, things that happened in your life that kind of led you to this path of just helping out others?
Um, Yeah, I mean, I think that I guess in some respects, I was fortunate that I grew up in a family that was really poor, and so I got to experience the benefits of the generosity of others, and so I think that actually helps. It helps you develop certainly empathy because you have, I grew up on food stamps and in subsidized housing and sometimes homeless and we were online at soup kitchens. We had really no money at times, and that and there were times when when the kindness of strangers made a big impact on us. I remember one time we were sleeping in a tent on the side of the road, and somebody came and just like in a pickup truck and was like, "Come on, get in." We got in, and they brought us to a motel, and they paid it for us to be in a motel. They gave us a gift certificate for Abdow's Big Boy, and I think I was 7 years old at the time, and that was I remember distinctly, we had a $14 gift certificate to Abdow's Big Boy, and for us, that was so much money, and it was like such a feast. It was such an embarrassment of riches. And for the person that gave that to us, it meant, they had to take an hour of their time to do what they did for us. And they gave us, probably in the end, $50 between the motel and the $14 at Abdow's Big Boy. And for them, that may not have been a lot of money, but for us, I am still talking about it 35 years later.
Yeah.
It made a huge impact on this little family that was, struggling on the side of the road. And there were a couple of other events like that in my childhood that have stuck with me. But in general, I think the fact that that we struggled and other people helped us was actually really lucky for me in the long run because it showed me that. I think that if you've never experienced real need like that, real material need, it might be a little bit harder to be empathetic or to want to help other people. I think that we all have that empathy in us, though, and that there's nobody out there who doesn't feel good helping somebody else in need. For some reason, though, I think that we often feel like we need some sort of license to do those things. We need some excuse for it. And the truth is, we don't need an excuse. You can go through life doing that all the time as a practice, as a reminder to stay present. It's a good thing to take note of the people who might be suffering around you and see if there's anything that you can do to ameliorate their situation. But yeah, that's my story.
Oh man, yeah, I love it, and it's so true. Like the individuals that have struggled, when you're going through that struggle, you might think that that's like the worst possible outcome that could ever happen to you at that point in time. But once you get through that and you pass through that phase, you look back and you're like, man, that probably is the greatest thing that could have happened to me because now I can take from that experience and apply it to my life now to help out other individuals. So I love that. Now fast forward a few years, you before acting, I know that I did a little Wikipedia research. You were working under the Clinton administration in the White House. Is that
Yeah,
true?
I working is a very strong word. I did. I interned in the White House in '95, right before Monica Lewinsky did, and and I was not good at my job, Luis. I was a terrible intern. I was doing I was in the Office of Presidential Personnel, and I was supposed to be helping sift through candidates for presidential appointment, which there are a tremendous number of. There's like at the time that this number may have changed, but at the time I think there were 3,500 positions for presidential appointment. So the president directly appoints 3,500 people in government, and there's a lot that we know about because we're hearing about them right now with Trump and his appointments. Which basically he seems to be just sort of pulling names out of a hat with people who are evil. Like these are the ones that we'll choose from. But that is a small fraction of the number of total appointments that a president can make. So there's all of these positions that are much, much lower down on the chain, and so there's a lot of work that goes into that, and it's not just when the administration starts because people are coming and going all along. So anyway, I was in that office. I was doing a lot of database entry. I was writing letters for Bill Clinton, which he would sign, but he wouldn't even really sign them. There was some machine that signed for him. And the letters would be letters like, thank you very much for your recommendation for so-and-so for Secretary of Agriculture. Look forward to, reading through them and meeting with so-and-so in person. Thank you so much. And that email, that letter that I had written, this is pre-email really, email was still just starting at this point. That letter I would then send. I would write it. Bill Clinton would fake sign it, and then it would go to some governor, the governor of Nebraska, and the governor of Nebraska's intern would read it and write a response letter back to me. And so it was like this weird network of interns writing letters to each other that the people who were fake signing them never read and didn't care about at all. So there's this whole weird world of correspondence that the people who are on the letterhead never even know about and certainly don't care about. And that's what I was engaged in. So I discovered that I was not a very good clerical worker and really bad at database maintenance. So I learned something about myself in the process, but it was not. I was not well suited to that task for sure.
So then, what made you shift from doing that to becoming an actor? You've been on several different shows, right? ER is one of them. That you've been on 24, I believe you were on 24 as well, and now Supernatural. You've been on for several years. So what helped you make that transition?
When I was in DC, I did start doing a little bit of acting, but I think that I'd grown up always thinking that I was going to go into politics. And there was something about my experience at the White House. Maybe it was that I just didn't like database entry. I'm not sure. But I wasn't crazy about DC. And there was something about the environment being in the White House that made me think, I don't know if this is right for me. I don't know if this is the right path. And so I decided to sort of course correct and reevaluate. And I thought, well, maybe what I could do is I could get, this is it's a little embarrassing to reveal this, but I thought maybe what I can do is I can get famous, and then I can use my fame to be influential instead of going through the political channels to do that. And so that is why I went into acting. It wasn't because at the time I had any particular passion or knack for acting, but it was just because I had this sort of long-term strategy of becoming famous enough that I could be influential. And I thought that I gave myself a 5-year time limit. Like if this hasn't worked out in 5 years, which I was very confident for some reason that it would, then I'll do something different. And needless to say, like 5 years later, I think I had guest starred on Charmed and had a cameo here and there. Like I had no measurable success at that point. but I ended up sticking with it, and I did end up through the process. I ended up gaining an affection for acting and everything that goes into that, and feeling increasingly gratified by that. But yeah, that was my long-term strategy.
Interesting. So, and then and now looking back at it, it's like look at what we talked about in the beginning, the random acts, GISHWHES. Like you did take that fame, and you're doing good for the world now because of that. So,
Yeah, maybe maybe my
that's awesome.
maybe my strategy worked. I don't know.
It did.
Yeah.
So now I have a friend of mine. His name is Nick Marino. He's a student actor. He goes to University of Central Florida, and he wrote down like an essay of questions to ask you. I don't think I'll
Okay.
be able ask all of them, so I'm gonna try to summarize all of them into just one big question.
Okay. Big question.
So essentially, he just wants to know, like, obviously, school is important. For certain things that you may or may not want to do, right? So one of his things is like, hey, should I just drop out and move to LA and just pursue acting 24/7, or should I stay here? And also, like, what other tips would you recommend for someone, not only just for Nick, but someone that's starting off in the industry, or has aspirations to become famous, right? And get into Hollywood and get into acting and TV shows, movies, all that sort of stuff. What types of tips would you recommend for them to start doing right now to get them moving towards that direction?
It's funny when I was recently back in LA with my oldest friend who also moved to LA with me back in 1999, and we were both at the same sort of point where we were like trying to get an agent, trying to get an acting job, that sort of stuff, and we were reflecting on that experience and how awful it is in hindsight, and how blind we were to that situation at the time. We were like, "This is great. We're on track." And now thinking back to the stuff that we were subjecting ourselves to and how difficult it was, I cannot believe how much work goes into it. It is truly not an easy path. There are people like one of the stars of Supernatural, Jared. He was like walking in a mall one day, and somebody was like, "Hey, you look good. You want to be a model or an actor?" And that's it. You just went. You came to LA. You got I think he got his first audition. Turned out to be Gilmore Girls, and he worked on that for years. And he's never not worked. So it does happen, but you have to be 6'4" and dashingly good looking for that kind of luck to lightning to strike. But with acting, I think. I think school is helpful. It is definitely not necessary. The biggest asset that you can have breaking into the business often is actually youth, and youth at times trumps school. Nothing is more valuable than credits. So if you have worked on something before, it's very valuable, more valuable than having gone to school. Going to acting school and I guess I should clarify that I'm not speaking to the New York theater scene or regional theater or anything like that. I'm just speaking about Los Angeles, because that's all I know. But the having legitimate credits on TV shows and things like that is gold. Unless you attend a top school like Tisch School for the Arts at NYU for an MFA, or Yale, or something like that. Anything else is not that impressive to LA casting directors or agents. They really don't care. So unless you feel like you're really gaining something personally and you're developing tools that you really feel you need, then unless you're at one of those top schools, it might not translate into something that is actually going to get doors open for you in LA. One of the pieces of practical advice that I can give is right now there's all these tax credits for film and television production. So if you shoot in Louisiana or New Mexico actually New Mexico's just went away, I think. But if you shoot in Louisiana or North Carolina or South Carolina or Texas, there's all these places where the local governments will give you your production tremendous tax credits. So tons of productions are shooting outside of Los Angeles. What that means practically is that there's these productions that are showing up, in Wilmington and North Carolina, and there's not a big pool of actors there, but there's a lot of production going on, which means there's a lot of available roles for local actors because a production can save a lot of money if they hire somebody locally. So they're inclined, if they can, to cast locally. And what that means is there's a real golden opportunity if you go places where there's production happening that is not Los Angeles. I would say do not come to Los Angeles to start. Los Angeles has 50,000, now I've forgotten the number. I think it's 100,000.
Yeah.
There's 100,000 union members. And of those, only about 2,500 are working consistently. So, and there's another 100 and something thousand people who are non-union who are trying to get union. So now you're competing against literally hundreds of thousands of people who are trying to go for actually a very few number of jobs that are shooting in LA. And you're just setting yourself up for incredibly challenging odds. So what I would suggest is starting in a secondary market. I actually did it in DC. I started in DC, so I got a couple of studio film credits in Washington DC, which is actually at the time it was actually relatively easy because they were tiny. There was like a couple of lines, but it goes a really long way to have a major motion picture on your resume that you can go to LA and give to casting directors and agents. So start not in LA, not in New York. Start in a secondary market, and pound the pavement and be unbelievably persistent. I literally have gone on thousands of auditions, and I never gave up. And I also, this is very trite, but it's very true. You have to find a way to fall in love with the process and not the product. If you go into the arts and are chasing some sort of goal, some sort of achievement, like I want to get a role in a production or I want to have my work in a gallery, and you're single-mindedly focused on that, you're not going to succeed because it takes such a long time to get to that point that you have to satisfy yourself along the way with the process that gets you there. You have to love painting, and you have to be satisfied in your studio painting every day in order to ever get good enough to get your stuff in a gallery. And likewise, you have to love acting, and you have to love the process of going on auditions, which I grew to love. I got myself to a point where I was like, I don't care if I get this part because I'm enjoying coming to do this audition. And you have to get into that frame of mind. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to deal with all of the rejection that inevitably is coming your way. And then, you have to also work harder than everybody else. That's another thing. You have to rehearse for your audition for hours and hours and hours, as much as you possibly can, because a lot of other people are going to be lazy, and that's going to give you the leg up. You have to work harder than other people if you want to be successful. You can't be lazy about it. I don't know. I could go on and on, but I'll stop.
No, those are great tips. That's great advice for, not only just individuals trying to get into the business, but just in any field at all. You can apply that advice to, say, somebody trying to go out and book speeches, right? For myself, I'm trying to go out and book more speeches so I can go out and spread the message of memory improvement. And it takes a lot of that, just a lot of rejection. Like for me, it's cold calling. I have to call a lot of companies and a lot of schools to try to get in the door. And a lot of them are saying, oh, it sounds interesting, but just not right now. Call me back in a few months. So you get a lot of rejection right off the bat. And it's so true. I fell in love with the process of just calling people because it's not just me trying to get the gig, but I'm just having a conversation with somebody. If they say yes, cool. If not, I've had companies call me like months later saying, hey, we have an opening now. Come and do your talk at our company event next month, right? So it's just more like you said, fall in love with the process, and do it every single second that you possibly can. Practice, 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 because that's gonna help you out tremendously.
Yeah, yeah. Speaking of memory, I'm gonna jump in here and say something that you've helped me. The way I know Luis is that I reached out to him because I wanted help with some memory improvement skills, because there are times when I feel like my brain doesn't work properly. But I have to say it was really very helpful. The stuff that I learned from you was really invaluable. It is invaluable, and I use it all the time. And there's still layers more deep I can go with the stuff that we have started on. I feel like I'm not done, but I use it all the time, and I actually use it. I use it for learning large passages of dialogue. One of the things with acting is it's a muscle. I mean, obviously it's a muscle, just like anything, and it gets much easier to learn dialogue as time goes on. I can learn dialogue pretty quickly now, but with lengthier passages, when it becomes a big chunk of text, it's always a challenge. And I am now using, the memory palace, for instance, every time I have a paragraph chunk or more, and I've noticed that it has helped my faculty with performance actually quite a bit, because it's freed me up. And this is like me coming to you as somebody who's 17 years doing this. Like, I'd been doing this for a long time before I learned that particular memory technique from you. And I noticed a marked difference in my performance on larger, meatier chunks of text, because it's enabled me to not think about the recall anymore. It just comes naturally because of that technique. So I thank you. You're very skilled at not obviously you're a renowned memory expert yourself, but you're also a good instructor. Like, you convey the knowledge in a very efficient and totally digestible manner. So thank you for that. You didn't ask me. He did not ask me to plug him, by the way. I did that of my own volition.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. I remember when I got contacted from your assistant, and he's like, Misha Collins. I told you straight up during our first session, I was like, I don't watch TV, so I don't, please don't get offended by the fact that I don't necessarily know who you are. And then I saw like your Instagram and everything. I was like, this guy has like millions of followers. I was like, he's pretty famous. No, but and then we started going through the process, and you pick it up like really quickly. Memorizing names and faces, which I know like in the industry you meet a lot of people all the time. That's one of the things that I use consistently on a regular basis. That I don't know if has that helped you out.
Yeah, totally. I mean, when I came to you, that's one of the things that I'm worst at, or was worst at. I mean, I still struggle with it, but I use those techniques. Anytime I remember to use your techniques, I'm fine. It's when I still forget to use them, then I'm like, shit, why didn't I use Luis's technique? So anyway, but yeah, it's been a major upward trajectory.
Thank you. I know that you have to go tend to the kids and family. So I just have like one or two more questions, if it's okay with you.
Yeah.
Just some fans of the show as well that wanted to ask some questions. So it's from a friend of mine, Lori, her daughter Megan. So she asks, how many takes did it take you to do the scenes where you use the phrase, "Hey, ass butt," without laughing?
Well, so there's a scene, that line has become very famous. There's a scene where I say, "Hey, ass butt," and then I throw a Molotov cocktail.
Hey, ass butt.
At this character who at the time, I can't even remember. Was that Lucifer? I think Lucifer was possessed. And it was confusing. It was either Michael or Lucifer. I can't remember who was possessing whom at that point. But I had this Molotov cocktail. So the "hey ass butt" actually was the least of my problems in that scene, because the Molotov cocktail that I was throwing was made out of this substance called. It actually had a flaming thing and liquid inside, and it was made out of this stuff called candy glass, which is like in a movie or something when you see like a bar fight and guys bashing bottles over each other's head and they break. It's because it's candy glass. If you take a beer bottle and you hit somebody over the head, normally it doesn't actually break. It just like cracks the person's skull and they fall bleeding.
Knocks them out.
So in order for actors to be able to hit actors with beer bottles, they use this stuff called candy glass, which breaks. So there's different thicknesses of candy glass. So you can have candy glass that's like actually really hard to break and candy glass that's easy to break. And they wanted to find it sort of like in the middle, because if it's too easy to break, it would break when I threw it. It would break in my hand as I was trying to throw it. So they made it a little harder than usual. So I was throwing it at this poor kid who it was hitting him really hard and not breaking. So it was like I was throwing this full bottle at him and it was just going like this and like hitting him and not breaking it. I was like, shit. So then I thought, all right, it didn't break because I didn't throw it hard enough. So I'll throw it harder. And I threw it hard so that it would just shatter and not hurt him. And it still didn't break. So that scene, ass butt, was the least of my problems. Injuring a fellow actor was the real problem.
Wow. All right, and then I have just one more. So this one's from Caitlin. She says, when you gave out a phone number a while ago for fans to call you, like a couple years ago, she says, do you still check that voicemail or even answer it? And what were your thoughts when you were giving out that number?
So I thought, oh, this will be funny. It was actually like a Google Voice number, so it wasn't actually my cell phone. But at that time, I had it set up so that that number fed to my cell phone. And I posted it. And I thought, people call, and they'll be like, oh, my God, I actually got through. And so I answered a couple of calls that came in. And then it was like, oh, my God, my phone is ringing constantly. Yeah. And then the text started scrolling in. Like they were just pouring in. I was like, shit. And then the next day I woke up, and this is a true story, and I got an email from a lawyer. And I don't know how he had found my contact information, but a lawyer had emailed me because I had apparently given out his client's phone number online, and his client, their business had been shut down the previous day by the flood of phone calls that had come in. And I was like, no, I didn't. This is my Google Voice number. And so I had a little back and forth with his lawyer, and it turns out people had switched two of the numbers. So I had posted a certain number, and the portion of my fans who were slightly dyslexic, two numbers, and 900 people switched these two numbers and called the wrong number, which is astonishing.
The odds of that alone.
I mean, that like gives you an indication of how many people were calling. Yeah. And I actually, for some reason, happened to log on and see that phone number on the Google Voice recently. I don't know how Google does it, but they've apparently stored all of the voicemails. I have 300,000 voicemails.
What?
Phone number. Which, I mean, literally, I'm thinking, like, is there like an entire server that's just devoted to, at Google, just devoted to storing the voicemails on that line? Because it seems like it. So, but yeah, it might take me a while to get through those ones.
Go through them, man. Just take off a few seasons from filming and just keep going through those voicemails. So cool, awesome. Thank you so much for getting. I have more questions. I can't get to all of them right now, but hopefully we have another to be continued session, another one follow up.
That's my thinking. Sorry.
And we can ask some more questions.
Yeah, I would love to, man. Thank you. It's always a pleasure, Luis. Good to see you. Hope you're well. I like your t-shirt. Will you stand up so I can see the bottom of your t-shirt?
Yeah. So it's like a guy, he's like smoking a pipe, and then it goes into the universe. That's so good. All right, I've definitely got to check those out. Check it out. Imaginary Foundation, another plug. All right. Awesome. All right, bye, my friend. Bye. Bye.